Son of a Birch gets it done. Turf Sprint race number 8 of 15 here on closing day at the fairgrounds. And we are now joined by Kylie Wellington, a jockey here at Fairgrounds who got hurt, what, about a month ago?
3 weeks.
3 weeks ago, in recovery. We'll talk more about that in just a bit. She's got 29 wins for her career. She still has her apprenticeship as of now. Kylie, tell us a little about where you're at with your injury, what happened to you, your recovery, and where we go from here.
So I got flipped on behind the gates, and the horse landed on my leg. I got a displaced tibia fracture, and they had to do surgery, and they put a rod and 4 screws. And it's healing really good. I have to stay in a walking boot for another 4 weeks at least. And then after that, we'll just see how I progress. And hopefully I'll be back to riding sometime this summer.
A couple days after she got hurt, I'm up here. I got a great view of the paddock, and I saw Kylie. She was here. She was moving about as fast as a turtle. And then yesterday I saw her. Boom. You're making good progress.
Yes. I'm excited.
Tell us about the entrance into horse racing. Did you grow up around horses? Tell us a little bit about how you got started.
So I've never been off the racetrack. I grew up in it. My dad was a quarter horse jockey. He rode for like 35 years, I believe. But my grandparents, they on both sides of my family, they all trained. My parents now train together in Iowa. So it's just something I was brought up into, and I always wanted to stay in it.
Prairie Meadows, you rode some in Nebraska. That's a long way from New Orleans. How'd you wind up here?
I was just riding one day, and I come back into the jocks room, and I missed a call from a Louisiana number, and I called it back, and it was an agent. It was Jerry Bork. He called me, asked me to come down here, and at first I told him no, and then he kept calling me, and so I was like, okay, I might as well. It was a new experience.
Did you know anybody here?
I knew Tanner Tracy. I knew he was going to have a string here, so that made me a little bit more comfortable. I was going to have somebody that could give me some rides and stuff, but I was very nervous.
Had you ever been to New Orleans before?
No.
Okay, this is a little bit different than where you're from.
Yeah.
So tell us about, your impressions of New Orleans, your first season here, how you were welcomed into the jocks room. It's a very tight-knit community here.
The jockeys here were awesome. Everybody in the jocks room was awesome. Even when I was a little bit frustrating and I didn't want to listen to everything they had to say, they were very good to me. They taught me a lot, so I'm very appreciative for those guys. And New Orleans as a whole was a really good experience, even though it didn't end it like I wanted it to. I really enjoyed Mardi Gras and getting to see all that stuff.
Now, I mentioned you have 29 wins, and I think 35. Is that the end of your bug? How much longer do you have on the bug?
I don't know.
It's a year. I think it's a year. 5 wins, then a year to your 35th or something.
I think 40th.
40th.
Yeah.
Right after your first 5, then the 35 begins.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So you got a little bit of time. You want to take full advantage of that, right? So once you get, back to a position where you're ready to get back up on horses, where are you going to go? What are you thinking?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Okay.
I'd like to end up in Kentucky sometime this summer to get back into galloping and get fit again. And then we'll see in the fall how I'm progressing and where I want to get back into riding.
Okay, cool. So you're prepared to take your time because a lot of riders that get injured are not.
Yeah, I didn't really want to. And, I'm feeling great right now. So I keep telling myself, I'm like, man, I could come back in a couple months. And the doctors are like, no, you should not do that.
Now, you mentioned your family's involvement in racing. Anybody else that's been like a mentor to you, anybody else that you look up to, either in this room or elsewhere, that's helped you along the way or that you'd like to kind of pattern your riding style after?
I was very lucky. I spent a lot of time in New York as a breeze rider. And so I got to work horses and sets with a lot of good riders. There was Dylan Davis, Trevor McCarthy, Johnny Velasquez, Tyler Gaffleone. So getting to ride with the bigger level riders first before I ever started riding, they taught me a lot. So, yeah, but I will say Johnny V is always going to be my idol.
What do you think your greatest skill as a rider? I mean, there's so many different aspects of what you do. What do you think you bring to the table as far as your biggest strength?
I get along with certain horses really well. That was from the start. There was just random fillies usually that I would just click with, and even though I wasn't really I was very green starting off, I just clicked with certain horses and they just ran for me. And I feel like that's true for all jockeys, though. There's just some horses.
Best horse you've been on?
I don't know in what aspect I can really say she was my best, but she'll always be my favorite. My first 2 wins were on the same filly. Her name's Ada Baby.
Okay.
And she just totally ran off with me at both races. There were 2 allowance races. It was for my family, though. My dad trained her, so that was just very exciting wins for me, and I'll always love that filly.
Your fondest memory of being at fairgrounds this winter? Any win in particular that you had?
My last win I got, Mr. Muldoon for Hugh Robertson. I started working horses for Mr. Hugh in December, and I was just honored to be in his barn at all. But when I got to ride that horse, and I really got attached to that horse too, and that was probably the most fun I've had in a race.
Tell us how that works. You're coming here, you're new, you don't know a lot of people, they don't know you. Going to the backstretch and trying to meet people and trying to get on horses in the morning and paying your dues so you do get rewarded with some mounts in the afternoon. Tell people a little bit about that process.
It's tough. I was really down on myself when I first got here because I couldn't even get people to put me on a horse to go gallop. They're like, I mean, when you come here and you say, oh yeah, I was riding in Columbus, Nebraska, nobody really had any idea who I was. And so it was just trying to convince people to give me a shot. It took a lot of work, but then I just needed a couple people just to put me on something, and people started seeing me in the mornings, and they saw that I was out there every morning at 4:45 making rounds in the barns, and they started giving me opportunities, so it worked out.
You mentioned Tanner Tracy, you mentioned Hugh Robertson, who are some of the other trainers that you seem to work well with.
Robert Falcone Jr., I was his assistant for a little bit last year, and so he gave me a mount here, Fast Break. That was my first win at Fairgrounds, and that was a very exciting race. I really appreciate Rob for giving me that opportunity. And Paul Duhan, he gave me, him and Miss Sally, they gave me a lot of mounts this winter, and we did pretty well.
There you go. So this meet ends today. And I know you said, you've got a short-term, long-term plan as far as getting back, to getting on horses and eventually riding again. Where are you going to be tomorrow? What are you doing next week? Where do we go from here?
I'm flying back to Iowa. I'm just going to focus on physical therapy, getting better, and it's just something that I got to see how well I'm progressing in the next month, and we'll figure it out.
Is there a particular racetrack that you say to yourself, man, I really want to ride there. I really want to win a race there?
I feel like everybody wants to go to Kentucky and do well there. And I've galloped quite a bit at Churchill, so that's pretty big dreams, though. But I would love to go to Churchill at some point in my career.
Right on. Any advice you would give to younger riders like yourself to get into the industry, get into the game, be ready when you ride your first race? Any advice you'd like to give to anybody?
I don't think you'll ever really be ready. I know I wasn't. I don't think anybody's actually ready when they make the step to ride their first race, and that's something you just have to accept, and you just got to do it. It's really scary, but it's also really exciting. And I remember when the gates opened in my first race, I don't remember much of the race, but I just remember getting out of the gates, and it was just like the rush of it. It was just the most amazing feeling. And from then on, I was like, I want to keep doing this. But it's just, you just got to do it.
Is that what you love most about outside of winning races? Is that what you love most about riding in races? The rush of it, the competitiveness. It's obviously a dangerous sport, and, it's a tough go. There's a lot of sacrifices you have to make.
Yeah, I love the rush of winning. I'm very competitive, but also I do get attached. This is kind of the downside of being a jockey, is that I do get attached to some of the horses that I ride frequently, but that's also part of the fun, is like when you work with the horse from when they're younger, and then, man, like you work on one week and you're like, man, this horse is really coming along, and like then you're excited when you get to ride them again. They do better for you. I like that part of it too, just seeing the horses improve.
That's a downside of being a horse owner, too, because I get attached to mine. We buy them as babies. You get attached to them. You want to put them in a position to succeed, but you also don't want to lose them via the claiming box. But you also can follow them and make sure that when they're ready to retire that they have a good home. You mentioned you did some assistant training work as well. Is that something you aspire to at some point? Is maybe doing some more of that, or is it full board 100%? I want to be a rider, and that's where my career path is going to take me.
The assistant training job was great. I got a lot of experience from that. I learned a lot of stuff working in the barn on the ground, but it was the most stressful job I've ever had. It was a lot of work, and I do not want to train. I will leave that to somebody else, but the fun part is just getting paid to ride horses. So that's if I'm going to be on the racetrack, that's all I ever want to do anymore.
It's been a joy having you here. Good luck with your recovery. And best of luck in your future. Thanks for joining us, Kylie.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Kylie Wellington, everybody, with 9 minutes to post time for race number 9 of 15 here on closing day at the fairgrounds. Good luck.